Welcome back to my channel. Today's video I'm doing something about a creature that was back in 1888. Texas Rangers were called to investigate something impossible. Basically, the story takes place in Texas back in 1888. They're going to investigate some mystery livestock disappearance on a huge rural bridge and encounter a legendary goat creature. This story tells about how the goat man came to be. Some people say it was a fallen angel mixed with DNA of animals and getting women pregnant with giants, so forth and so on. It's just another legend throughout the world we all know and learn. Some people heard about it since 1922 and everything. You just gotta understand, all these legends, the creatures we hear throughout history is the exact same time when fallen angels, the watchers came down to earth and taught forbidden spells to humans and everything. That's just another outcrop of what happened. If you understand, look in the Bible, God sent a flood to get rid of the necks of all you creatures of the world. That's what's happening. They just remnants of the creatures till today. So let's go ahead and get to the video.
Possible near a rural bridge. 14 animals had vanished in 3 months. What they found beneath that bridge, piles of bones, ancient warnings carved in stone, and tracks that belonged to nothing natural, led to a hunt that would challenge everything they believed about the world. This is the true account from Ranger Robert McAllister's own words, a story buried for over a century. If you're ready to face what walks between folklore and reality, don't forget to subscribe, because some stories demand to be heard. I remember the silence more than anything. Not the peaceful kind you get in open country, but the wrong kind. The kind where even the crickets know better than to make a sound. That silence hung over the San Gabriel Bridge like a burial shroud, thick and waiting. I'm Robert McAllister, Texas Ranger, and in the spring of 1888, I thought I'd seen every kind of evil a man could do to another. I was wrong about what evil could be. The assignment came through Captain Reynolds in Austin. Livestock disappearances near a rural bridge crossing about 40 miles northeast of the capital. Farmers losing cattle, sheep, even horses. Animals too large and valuable to simply wander off. The local sheriff, Benjamin Cross, had written 3 letters in 2 months, each one more desperate than the last. The final letter mentioned something that made Reynolds send me specifically. Witnesses reporting unnatural sounds at night. And one farmer who'd sworn he'd seen something walking upright that wasn't a man. I took Thomas Hill with me, a young ranger, barely 23, but sharp-eyed and steady. We rode out on a Tuesday morning, the kind of bright Texas day that makes you forget the world holds any darkness at all. The landscape rolled past in waves of yellow grass and scattered oak, cattle dotting the hillsides like brown stones. Thomas talked about his sister's upcoming wedding, about maybe requesting a transfer closer to home. I let him talk. I'd learned over 15 years of ranging that young men needed to fill silence before they learned to respect it. We reached the settlement of Gabriel's Crossing just before sunset on our second day. The town wasn't much. A general store that doubled as the post office, a blacksmith, a church with a leaning steeple, and a saloon called the Watering Hole. Maybe 40 souls called the place home, most of them farmers working the bottomland along the San Gabriel River. Sheriff Cross met us outside his office, a one-room structure that shared a wall with the barber shop. Cross was a thick-set man in his 50s, with gray shot through his beard and the kind of tired eyes that told you he'd stopped sleeping properly. He shook our hands with the grip of someone grateful for reinforcement. Rangers, thank God. I was starting to think Austin figured we were crying wolf. Tell us about the livestock, I said, declining his offer of coffee. I wanted to see the bridge before full dark. He pulled out a ledger, flipped it open to pages covered in his careful script. Started in February. Jacob Mallory lost 2 steers. Found them 3 days later, or what was left. Bones picked clean and piled up neat-like under the north end of the bridge. Thought it was wolves at first, or maybe a mountain lion come down from the hill. He paused, ran a hand through his hair. Then Sarah Brennan's prize mare vanished. She'd tied it to a post outside the church during evening service. An hour later, it was gone. No tracks leading away, no struggle, just gone. Thomas leaned forward. How many animals total, Sheriff? 14, Cross said quietly. 14 in 3 months. Cattle, horses, sheep, even Tom Warren's hunting dogs. Both of them, same night. All disappearances happen near the bridge or on the roads leading to it. And it's always at night. Always. I studied his face. The letter mentioned witnesses, sounds and sights. Cross closed the ledger, his jaw working like he was chewing something bitter. Mary Hutchins was coming back from her daughter's place about 3 weeks ago, just past midnight. Said she heard singing coming from under the bridge. Not words she recognized, but singing all the same, high and low at once, like 2 voices from one throat. She drove her wagon past, as fast as her horse would go, didn't look back. And the sighting? Thomas asked. The sheriff stood, moved to his window. The sun had dropped below the horizon now, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange. Henry Garza runs cattle on the East Range. Was checking his fence line 2 nights ago, maybe 9 o'clock. Says he saw something standing on the bridge, upright, man-sized but wrong somehow. He called out, thinking it was someone needing help. It turned toward him. Cross fell silent for a moment. Said it had a man's body but a goat's head. Long curved horns, snout instead of a nose. Just stood there watching him. Then it walked off the bridge into the trees. Still on 2 legs, moving wrong, jerky-like, but fast. Thomas and I exchanged glances. In my time as a ranger, I'd learned that people saw what fear told them to see. A bear in shadow becomes a monster. A drunk in the dark becomes a ghost. But the pattern bothered me, the missing animals, the bones, the bridge as a common thread. Anyone else see this thing? I asked. Old Luther Sims says he saw eyes under the bridge about a month back. Yellow eyes, reflecting his lantern light. Big as saucers, he claimed. But Luther's been known to sample his own moonshine pretty regular. Cross turned back to faces. I know how this sounds, Rangers. I'm not a superstitious man. Spent 20 years keeping order in 3 different towns. But something's killing livestock near that bridge. And whatever it is, has this whole settlement scared to travel after dark. We agreed to ride out to the bridge in the morning, get a proper look in daylight before we did anything else. Cross offered us bunks in his office, but I preferred the saloon. Better chance of hearing what folks were really saying when they thought lawmen weren't listening. Thomas and I took a room upstairs at the Watering Hole. Ate a dinner of fried steak and potatoes that was better than expected. Then settled into the common room with glasses of whiskey. The saloon filled up as evening settled in. Farmers mostly, faces weathered by sun and wind, talking in low voices that rose and fell like worried prayers. I caught fragments of conversation. Won't take the river road anymore. Something's got a taste for blood. My grandfather used to tell stories. The bartender, a former Buffalo soldier named Moses Washington, leaned on the bar near us. You boys hear about the bridge? He asked, voice pitched low. We are, I said. You seen anything unusual, Moses? He wiped down the bar with a rag, eyes scanning the room. Unusual? Nah. But I hear things. Been running this place 5 years. and folks talk more when they're drinking. There's old stories about that bridge, Ranger. Goes back to before the war, before Texas was even Texas. The Tonkawa used to camp near that crossing, but they never stayed long. Said something lived in the river there, something that walked between worlds. Thomas scoffed softly. Indian superstition. Moses fixed him with a steady gaze. Maybe, or maybe they knew something we're just now learning. All I know is animals are dying, and people are scared. And fear's its own kind of truth, whether the thing causing it is real or not. We sat in that saloon until near midnight, listening to the worried talk fade into uneasy silence. When we finally climbed the stairs to our room, I stood at the window for a while, looking out over the dark shapes of buildings toward where I knew the San Gabriel River ran. Somewhere out there in that darkness, the bridge waited. I thought about piles of bones, yellow eyes, and something that walked upright but wasn't a man. Thomas was already snoring softly in his bed. I checked my Colt Peacemaker, made sure all 6 chambers were loaded, then finally lay down. But sleep came hard and thin. I kept hearing Moses Washington's words. Fear's its own kind of truth. And I thought about how, in all my years ranging, I'd learned that sometimes the scariest monsters were just men doing monstrous things. But sometimes the old stories were old for a reason. Sometimes they were warnings. I drifted off finally and dreamed of bridges and bones and something with horns standing in shallow water, watching the road with eyes that caught the moonlight like copper coins. Morning would bring answers. I hoped they were answers I could live with. We rode out at first light, when the world was still gray and uncertain. Sheriff Cross led the way on a sturdy roan, Thomas and I flanking him on either side. The road wound through stands of post oak and cedar, following the gentle roll of the land toward the river valley. Birds sang their morning songs, mockingbirds and jays, cardinals flashing red through the branches. Normal sounds, daylight sounds. They made the previous night's talk seem foolish. Bridge is about 2 miles ahead, Cross said, adjusting his hat against the rising sun. Built in 71, after the old Ford became too dangerous during spring floods. Good solid construction, limestone pillars, oak planking. Carried plenty of traffic until February. And now? I asked. Now folks take the long way around, even if it adds 5 miles to their journey. Can't say I blame them. We crested a rise, and the San Gabriel River valley spread below us. A ribbon of green cutting through the yellow grassland. The bridge stood dark against the morning light. A simple span, maybe 60 feet long, crossing where the river narrowed between limestone banks. From this distance, it looked ordinary. Just wood and stone, no different from 100 other bridges I'd crossed in my career. But as we descended toward it, I noticed the silence Thomas had mentioned earlier. The bird songs had stopped. No insects buzzed in the warming air. Even our horses' hoofbeats seemed muffled, absorbed by something I couldn't name. Thomas noticed it too. I saw him sit straighter in his saddle, hand drifting toward his rifle scabbard. We dismounted 50 yards from the bridge's southern approach. I walked forward slowly, studying the ground. The road showed normal traffic wear. Wagon ruts, hoof prints, boot marks, all weathered by time and rain. Nothing unusual until I got within 20 feet of the bridge itself. Rangers, Cross called softly. Look here. He was crouched at the bridge's entrance, pointing at the dirt. Tracks, large ones, pressed deep into the earth where spring rains had left the ground soft. They weren't horse tracks or cattle tracks. They looked almost human, the right general shape, but wrong in the details. The toes were too long, ending in what looked like cloven points, and the stride was off, too wide for a man. The gait, suggested by the spacing, unnatural somehow. Thomas knelt beside them, pulled out his notebook, and made a quick sketch. "These are fresh," he said. "Last rain was 3 days ago. These were made after that." I followed the tracks. They came from the east, crossed the road, and disappeared onto the bridge itself. The wooden planks showed no marks. Too hard to take prints. I walked onto the bridge slowly, feeling the solid oak beneath my boots, hearing the river gurgle 15 feet below. The structure seemed sound enough, but there was a smell I couldn't quite place, musky and sharp, like wet animal, but with something else underneath. Something that reminded me of the rendering plant in Austin, where they boiled down carcasses. "Under here," Cross said. He'd moved to the bridge's edge, was peering down at the riverbank below. I joined him and felt my stomach tighten. The north bank, where it curved back under the bridge's shadow, was littered with bones. Dozens of them, skulls and ribs and long leg bones, picked clean and white, scattered across the rocky shore like discarded toys. I could identify cattle skulls, at least 2 horses, smaller bones that might have been sheep or dogs. They'd been there a while. Some showed weathering, but others looked relatively fresh. "Jesus," Thomas whispered, coming up beside me. "That's a killing ground." He wasn't wrong. Whatever was taking the livestock was bringing them here, to this spot beneath the bridge. Feeding here. Living here, maybe. I scanned the riverbank, the limestone outcrops, the thick cedar growth on both sides. Plenty of places for something to hide. Plenty of cover. "We need to get down there," I said. "Get a closer look." The descent to the riverbank was steep and treacherous. Loose rock and thorny brush that grabbed at our clothes. Cross stayed on the bridge with the horses. Somebody needed to keep watch, and his bad knee made climbing difficult. Thomas and I worked our way down carefully, hands on our pistols, eyes scanning the shadows under the bridge. Up close, the bone pile was worse. The skulls had been cracked open. I could see the fracture marks, the way the bone had been split to get at the marrow inside. Some of the long bones showed tooth marks, deep gouges that suggested powerful jaws. I knelt beside a horse skull, studying the damage. The marks didn't match any predator I knew, not wolf or mountain lion or bear. "Ranger McAllister," Thomas called. He was standing near the water's edge, pointing at something carved into the limestone wall beneath the bridge. I moved to his side and felt my skin prickle. Symbols, dozens of them, scratched into the soft stone. Crude pictures of animals and what might have been human figures, all surrounding a central image that was larger and more detailed than the rest. It showed something upright, with a man's body and a goat's head, horns curving back from its skull, arms spread wide. Below it, more animal figures, all lying on their sides. "How old are these?" Thomas asked, his voice tight. I ran my fingers over the carvings. The edges were weathered, but not ancient. "Not sure. Could be years old, could be decades. But they're deliberate. Someone, or something, made these on purpose." "Warning," Thomas suggested. "Or worship?" I didn't answer because I didn't know. But standing there in the shadow of that bridge, surrounded by bones and strange carvings, with that unnatural silence pressing down like a physical weight, I felt something I hadn't felt in years of ranging. Genuine fear. Not the sharp fear of a gunfight or a knife in the dark, but the deep, cold fear of facing something beyond my understanding. We spent another hour searching the area. Found more tracks, the same strange, cloven-toed prints, leading from the bone pile into the cedar thicket on the north bank. Found tufts of coarse hair caught on branches, dark gray-brown and bristly. Found a depression in the soft earth beneath an overhang, roughly man-sized, where something had been lying. The smell was stronger here, that musky animal stench mixed with something fouler. It beds down here, I said, studying the compressed earth. During the day, maybe, then hunts at night. Thomas was pale, sweat beading on his forehead despite the morning cool. What is it, Robert? What are we dealing with? I shook my head. Don't know yet. But it's real, whatever it is. Real and dangerous and smart enough to use this bridge as a hunting ground. Knows livestock have to cross here. Knows people avoid it at night now. It's adapted to us. We climbed back up to the bridge where Cross was waiting, his face tight with worry. Find anything? Enough, I said. Enough to know this isn't superstition or imagination. Something's living under that bridge, and it's been killing steadily for months. The question now is what we do about it. Cross pulled out a pocket watch. Checked the time. Near 9 o'clock. We should get back to town, organize a proper hunting party. Get more men, more guns. Come back in force. It made sense tactically. But something bothered me about the idea of bringing more people into this. More people meant more targets if things went wrong. And something about those carvings, those deliberate symbols, suggested intelligence. This wasn't just an animal defending its territory. This was something that understood symbols and ritual, and maybe even enjoyed the fear it was causing. How many men in Gabriel's Crossing who can shoot straight? I asked. Maybe a dozen, Cross said. Farmers mostly, but they know their way around rifles. Henry Garza's a crack shot. Brings down deer at 200 yards. Moses Washington from the saloon, he was a soldier. Luther Sims, for all his drinking, was a buffalo hunter back in the day. We rode back toward town, the morning sun now bright and warm, burning off the last of the dawn chill. But that silence followed us, that unnatural absence of life. No deer in the thickets, no rabbits darting across the road. Even the vultures that should have been circling seemed to avoid the area around the bridge. As we passed through a stand of oak, Thomas suddenly pulled his horse up short. Listen, he said. We stopped. At first, I heard nothing. Then, faint and distant, coming from somewhere behind us, from the direction of the bridge, a sound that raised the hair on my neck. It might have been singing, high and wavering, like Cross had described. Or it might have been just wind through the cedar branches, making sounds that fear shaped into something worse. But our horses heard it too. All three animals rolled their eyes and shifted nervously, ears pinned back. Animals don't lie about danger. They know it instinctively, in ways we've forgotten. Let's move, I said, and we rode toward Gabriel's Crossing at a canter, leaving that sound behind us. But I knew we'd be hearing it again soon enough. Probably tonight, when darkness fell and whatever lived beneath that bridge came out to hunt. We gathered in Sheriff Cross's office at noon. 12 men total, counting Thomas and myself. The faces looking back at me showed a mix of determination and barely concealed fear. Henry Garza was there. The rancher who'd seen the thing on the bridge, along with Moses Washington, Luther Sims, and 9 others. Farmers and shopkeepers, husbands and fathers, men who'd signed on to protect their community, but hadn't bargained on hunting something that walked upright and sang in the darkness. Here's what we know, I said, standing before the rough map Cross had sketched of the bridge area. Something's been killing livestock for 3 months, using the San Gabriel Bridge as its hunting ground. It beds down in the cedar thicket on the north bank during the day. Comes out at night to hunt. It's large, man-sized or bigger, strong enough to take down horses and cattle. And it's smart. Smart enough to avoid confrontation, until now. Smart enough to pick off isolated animals. Luther Sims, his weathered face skeptical despite his earlier sighting, spoke up. You saying it's this goat man thing Henry saw? You believe in that? I believe in the bones under that bridge, I said flatly. I believe in the tracks we found. Tracks that don't match any animal I know. And I believe in the evidence of my own eyes. What we call it doesn't matter. What matters is we stop it before it escalates from livestock to people. It already has, said a quiet voice from the back. A woman had slipped into the office, Sarah Brennan, the one who'd lost her mare. She was perhaps 40, dressed in a simple work dress, her face drawn. My son Tommy, he's 12, was supposed to be home before sunset yesterday, coming back from the Miller farm. Didn't arrive until nearly 9 o'clock. Claimed something followed him on the river road. Stayed just out of sight in the trees, pacing him. Making sounds, clicking sounds like someone clucking their tongue. He ran the last mile home, so scared he couldn't speak proper for an hour after. The room went silent. That changed things. Animals were one matter. A child being stalked was another entirely. All the more reason to end this tonight, I said. Here's the plan. We split into 3 groups. Group 1, that's me, Thomas, and 4 others. We'll approach the bridge from the south just before sunset. We'll be the bait, visible and noisy. Group 2, led by Sheriff Cross, will position on the north bank in the cedar thicket where we found the bedding site. Group 3, led by Moses, will cover the east approach. We box it in, 3 sides.
Basically, the goat man was been in the body of a man, head of a goat. Basically, it was some kind of legendary creature. Those people say it was man-made. Some say it predate back to Christianity times. But I know this right here. Some of these things should not be fucking messed with. Some of these places should not be disturbed and everything. When you go into an area you shouldn't be going into, you ask them for trouble. Okay, that's all I gotta say. You ask them for trouble. Anyway, this is my video. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you like it. I'm cutting it short because I gotta do other videos here as well. So enjoy. Have a nice holiday. Be safe out there.